Welcome to Naresh IT. I am Mr.Nataraj. In this video, I am going to talk about Type 3 JDBC driver. It's one of the JDBC driver among the 4+1 JDBC drivers that are there in the market. I am using my word terminology 4+1 very carefully. 4 official drivers are there, 1 unofficial driver is there in JDBC. The official drivers are type 1, 2, 3, 4 drivers. These are called official driver because Sun Microsystem has recognized them officially, because they are designed and delivered by whom? Sun Microsystem. But unofficial driver, that is what? Type 5. Some third party vendors have created it, but Sun Microsystem has not officially recognized it. That's why we call it as what? Unofficial. Unofficial. So if any interviewer asks the question, how many types of JDBC drivers are there? Better to say 4+1. 4 official, 1 unofficial. So from Java 8 onwards, Sun Microsystem or Oracle Corporation stopped giving support for what? Type 1 JDBC driver. What driver? Type 1 JDBC driver. They stopped giving support for Type 1 JDBC driver. So currently 3 are the official drivers and 1 is what? Unofficial driver. But in this video, I am going to talk about Type 3 JDBC driver. Remaining all drivers are designed to talk with the database software directly in 2-tier environment. That means Java application is there that uses type 1 or type 2 or type 4 or type 5 driver directly to talk with the database software. When it comes to type 3 driver, it is not designed to talk with the database software directly. It is designed to talk with proxy server or web server, okay, asking for connection object. But this proxy server or web server internally takes the support of either ODBC driver or type 1 driver or type 2 driver or type 4 driver or type 5 driver to interact with the database software and to get the connection object from connection pool. And this connection object will be delivered to Java application. I repeat again, Java application uses type 3 driver to talk with web server or application server. This web server or what? Application server or proxy server internally takes the support of some other driver to talk with what? Database software. Okay, na? So that means type 3 is not designed to talk with the database software. Type 3 driver is designed to talk with what? Proxy server or web server or application server. Example for proxy server is IDS server. Example for web server is Tomcat. Example for application server is what? WebLogic. Many things are there. I am just highlighting few for one thing for every category. So let me give a diagram. Here is my Java application. Who talks with web server or proxy server. What's the example for web server? Tomcat. What's the example for proxy server? Microsoft has given one proxy server called what? IDS server. And as usually, this is my database software. As usually, this is my database software. This is my database software. Let's see. So Java application talks with web server or application server. Web server or proxy server interacts with what? Database software and gets the connection. And that connection object will be given to whom? Java application. So let me put my popularity. Let me give the flow of execution. Yes. So let me put the numbering here. What is this? Number 1. What is this? Number 1. Simply what driver here? Type 3 driver. Right. So This proxy server or web server interacts with what? Database software using what? Sometimes ODBC driver, sometimes type 1 driver, yes, type 2 driver, sometimes type 4 driver. Okay. Because of this, connection with the database software will establish. So, number 3, that connection object will be given back to JDB's Java application. So, here we write some code to use the received connection object and to create other JDBC objects and to develop the persistence logic. So, this is number 4. What is that number 4 indicates? JDBC code. What code here? JDBC code. Right. I'll explain the flow one more time. Let's see. Here Java application is not using type 3 driver to talk with the database software directly. Observe very carefully. Java application is using what? Type 3 driver to talk with web server or proxy server. This proxy server or web server internally uses what? ODBC driver or type 1, type 2, type 4 driver to interact with the database software and to create the connection object. And number 3, that connection object will be given to Java application, and Java application uses that connection object to create other JDBC objects and to develop what? Persistence logic. To develop what logic here? Persistence logic. You may ask me, what is the advantage? Observe very carefully. Tomorrow, any change in the location of the database software, any change in the version of the database software, any change in other details of database software, our Java application is least bothered. All the things will be taken care by proxy server or web server. That is the advantage of it. Observe very carefully. It looks like a 3-tier architecture. Java application represents what? Tier 1. Web server or application represents what? Tier 2. Database software represents what? Tier 3. Database software represents what? Tier 3. So, one more angle if you observe, we cannot use type 3 driver alone. I repeat, we cannot use type 3 driver alone. It should be used along with type 1 or type 2 or type 4 or sometimes type 5 or at least one ODBC driver, because type 3 driver is not designed to talk with the database software. It gives the feeling it is given to talk with the database software. Actually, it is given to talk with web server or proxy server and to get the connection object. But that web server or proxy server internally uses other driver support for database connectivity. Got it now? So, why server is called as proxy server? Web server means you know that generally it is there to handle request and response kind of thing. That's why it is called web server. But why it is named as another software called proxy server? Simple. Actually, Java application is interested to talk with the database software. So, Java application should have entire logic and code to communicate with the database software. But on behalf of Java application, someone else is doing this work. Someone else. That means one extra person, one extra server is acting as a proxy to Java application, doing the work of what? Java application. That's why it is called as what? Proxy server. What do you mean by proxy? The duplicate that represents real until real thing comes is called as what? Proxy. Or the duplicate that will do work on behalf of other thing is called as what? Proxy. Here, proxy server is talking to database software, creating the connection on behalf of Java application and giving to Java application. That's why it is called as what? Proxy server. Let me present in one more angle. In the childhood, you didn't like physics class. You have gone to cafeteria. On behalf of you, your friend or your colleague student might have given attendance in the classroom. That is called proxy attendance or not. You are not there in the classroom, but he said yes sir, he said present sir on behalf of you. That means in that particular moment he is acting as what? Your proxy. I hope now you got a clarity. Here also proxy server, okay, is talking to database software, creating connection, okay, on behalf of Java application and giving to Java application. That's the reason it is called as what? Proxy server. So how to work with web server? Okay, we will discuss as part of what? Web application development. But in this video, I would like to concentrate on how to work with the type 3 driver in combination with what? Proxy server. So shall we start understanding how to work with the proxy server now? Right. So proxy server is basically given by Microsoft. What is the name of that? IDS server. What is the name of that? IDS server. So IDS server. Who is the vendor here? Who is the vendor? Who is the vendor? Microsoft. Commercial, open source, commercial. Port number. Default port number is what? 12. Default port number is 12. Next, from where you can download? From to download www.microsoft.com. www.microsoft.com. This is the place. So generally it will give having 1 month trial period. After 1 month again reinstall, it will run for another 30 days. Okay, all right. So it's a default port number is what? 12. That means once installed it will run on the port number what? 12. So right now I want to develop one application. Okay, what is that application? You know, I want to use type 3 driver to talk with MS Access database software. MS Access database software by using type 3 driver for type 3 driver and ODBC driver for what? MS Access. Type 3 driver and ODBC driver for MS Access. So let me start designing of the application. So what is this? Now I would like to develop example application to talk with MS Access database software using type 3 driver and ODBC driver. Type 3 driver and ODBC. That means type 3 driver will be used to talk with a proxy server and proxy server uses ODBC driver support internally. So let's go for first step. Create college.accdb file having DB table with records. Having DB table with what? Records. So actually I am trying to open the one that is already available. Let's see. Here is my D drive. What is the folder? Demos folder. College.accdb. Here we are having student table. Already 2 records are there and everyone knows how to work with MS Access. Okay, na? Right. So we have a table. In the table 2 records are there. Okay, fine. This is the next one. The next step I have to do is create system DSN. System DSN for MS Access. System DSN. I am clearly specifically telling it should not be user DSN, it should be what? System DSN. You must create system DSN. So just type ODBC, search for ODBC. That's nice. Right. Here we have system DSN. Okay. I am removing existing one. Add. What is the one I have to take? Microsoft Access driver. Make sure that ACCDB is there, Access database is there. Any DSN name I can take. I am taking ACC DSN. So I need to select this one. Right. Where is that? D drive demos college.accdb. College.accdb. Okay. Okay. So I have created DSN also. because if you want to work with ODBC driver, DSN is required. Data source name is useful to identify what? ODBC driver. So if you want, you can talk with Oracle also here. If you want, you can talk with Oracle, but for the timing I am working with what? MS Access database, because in many other videos I talked about what? How to interact with Oracle. That's why I am now talking with what? MS Access, right? Number C, install IDS server as proxy server. Go to Google, search for IDS server, you will get one setup file, and please install what? IDS software. Where is that IDS software? Just see. So you will get 1 month trial period. Now here I am showing installation of IDS server, right? So it's saying that already available, I am removing it. Finish. But reinstall one more time. Say yes. Say yes. Say next. Say yes. Next. Next. Just complete the installation of what? IDS server. It does not take much time. It takes very few minutes time to complete the installation of IDS server. Right. The good news about IDS server is it gives built-in type 3 driver. Though it is given by Microsoft, they are giving what? Type 3 driver. Type 3 driver of what? Java. So gather type 3 driver details from IDS server. Okay. Generally, you know that when I say JDBC driver, you have to gather 3 minimum details. Number 1, driver class name, number 2, URL, number 3, jar file. But somehow IDS server is not giving type 3 driver in the form of jar file. It is giving in a folder. So you have to know the address location of that folder. That means path of that folder. So what is driver class name? The driver class name is this one. What is it? Yes. Driver class name is this. ids.sql.driver. ids.sql.driver. ids.sql.driver is the driver class name. Next, URL. What is that? URL. This is the URL. Copy. But this URL I am giving purely for what? When type 3 driver wants to use ODBC driver, what is the URL? So here one or other DSN I have to place. Let's look at JDBC colon IDS is the protocol. This is the host name and port number of what? Host name and port number of what? IDS server. Con is the fixed keyword saying that I need connection object. DSN is equal to DSN. DSN is also fixed query string name. I mean it's a request parameter name. So here I have to pass what? DSN. DSN means whatever ACC DSN we created for Microsoft Access driver, that you have to pass. If it is Oracle kind of thing, okay, along with the DSN you should also pass username and password. This is for what? MS Access. This is for MS Access. Suppose you have a Oracle one. So at that time you have to pass even username and password. Even username and password. Let me give for Oracle. Let me give it for what? Oracle. This is for Oracle. Let me pass it. So let's see. Protocol, host name and port number. This is host name and port number. Con DSN. This is what? The DSN created for Microsoft ODBC driver for Oracle. Username. One or other Oracle username. Next ampersand PWD is equal to what? Password. That means Oracle username, Oracle password, Oracle ODBC driver related DSN. What is extra? User passwords are extra. Why? MS Access is a single user database software. That's why username password is optional. Oracle is what? multi-user database software. That's why username password is what? Mandatory. Observe very carefully. Here we are giving information related to IDS server, port number and host name, and we are also giving what? DSN. What does it mean? Using this URL info, you communicate with proxy server, nothing but IDS server, and we are requesting IDS server to take this DSN based ODBC driver. What here? This DSN based ODBC driver to talk with a certain database software to get the connection object. So that means based on this URL, type 3 driver talks with proxy server called IDS server. Based on the DSN that is specified and other username password details that are specified, this proxy server, nothing but IDS server interacts with what? Database software and establish the connection. Okay, that's nice. Location. In which location it is available? Okay, this is IDS server home / classes folder. No jar file here, somehow they are giving in the form of folder. You want to feel that one practically? Yes, let me demonstrate it. So I go to C drive. Here I installed IDS server classes. Observe, there is a folder called ids.sql. There is a class called IDS driver. This is acting as a driver class. Okay, that's nice. Then what would we do? Add IDS server home / classes folder to class path environment variable. Class path environment variable, because we want to use JDBC driver, means the driver software related directory or jar file should be added to whom? Class path environment variable. No doubt we must add to what? Class path environment variable. I hope you got a clarity on it. So that's why I am going to add this one to what? Class path environment variable. Let me demonstrate how to add. I think already added. Let me confirm it. So right click, properties, advanced system settings, environment variables, class path. Observe this one carefully. This is added to what? Class path environment variable or not? Classes folder is added to class path environment variable. That's nice. So next, let's see the next process that we need to do. Develop and execute the application. EF. Develop and what? Execute the application. Let's observe how to develop the application. So regular package import statement, class name, main method. We need to register that driver. What is that driver? Type 3 JDBC driver. So that driver is identified with its what? Driver class name. So that's why I am loading it. Just now I have given that information. Later establish the connection. See this line? Right. Driver manager dot get connection. JDBC : IDS protocol. Localhost 12 is the host name and port number of what? IDS server. Right now IDS server is there in the same machine. Connection is the fixed string. DSN is the fixed string. So I want to see IDS server what? ODBC driver for MS access to talk with what? Database software. That's why I am taking what? ACC DSN, which I have created in the above steps. So because of this you will get a connection object. Very interesting. This method makes this URL to have communication with the IDS server. IDS server takes this ACC DSN, nothing but DSN of ODBC driver, uses the ODBC driver to talk with what? MS access to establish the connection. And that connection will be given to Java application, and here we are receiving the connection. If it is Oracle, along with DSN, Microsoft ODBC driver for Oracle related DSN, you have to even pass username and password as I have explained earlier. So ultimately we got a connection object. So using connection object create the statement object, it's quite regular code. Using what? Statement object you create a result set object, that's nice. Using results you try to process the result set object, it's quite regular code in any JDBC application, and close the JDBC objects. Observe very carefully, this section to this section pretty same like any other JDBC application working with any driver. Only this section is different. Here I am registering type 3 driver given by IDS server. Here I am establishing connection to proxy server, making proxy server to use what? Given DSN based ODBC driver to establish the connection with MS Access. That connection object is used to create other JDBC objects and to develop the persistence logic. So it's pretty simple. Already this type 3 driver related software related folder is added to whom? Class path environment variable. When you install IDS server, automatically it will go for running mode. So that's why all our setup is ready to compile and execute this particular application. So shall we start compiling and executing this application? Yes. Let's go to command prompt. Java C type 3 test1.java. Let's compile the application. Okay, then Java type 3 test1. Execute it. Yes, there are two records in my what? MS Access. Okay, there are two records in my MS Access and I am getting what? Both the records over here. So how can you say it is not talking to MS Access directly? How can you say that? So I'll go to services. Right? I'll stop IDS server. Let's see, this is IDS server. I'll stop this. Right. Here is our execution. We are getting exception. That means when IDS server is not running, we are getting exception. That means it is not trying to talk with MS Access directly, it is talking to MS Access through what? IDS server. This indicates what? Our Java application is talking to IDS server using type 3 driver. IDS server is using what? ACC DSN based Microsoft ODBC driver for MS Access to talk with MS Access and gets the connection and passes that connection object to what? Java application. Java application is doing rest of the work, right? So where it is useful in real time practices. While working with connection objects that are collected from connection pool, this type 3 setup is very useful. That time they use this setup in support with web server software, not with proxy server. Anyhow, in our Servlet JSP videos, I am going to show how to use this type 3 driver in what? Web server environment. In this video, I wantedly focused, okay, to get a type 3 driver in combination with what? Proxy server. This is about working with what? Type 3 driver, okay. So here I have used type 3 driver setup to talk with the database software in combination of what? Proxy server. In Servlet JSP videos, I am going to talk about how to use this type 3 driver in combination with what? Web server. That time we are going to see how to use this type 3 driver to get the JDBC connection object from JDBC connection pool, right? So type 3 driver basically talks about 3-tier environment to talk with the database software, okay, where our Java application are not responsible for the changes that happens in database software, because the middleman web server or proxy server will take care of what? Those changes, right? So everyone knows type 3 driver theoretically, but here I would like to give practical demonstration of type 3 driver. That's why I have recorded this video, presented to this video. I hope you got practical benefit with what? Type 3 driver setup. Catch me for more videos in this Naresh IT channel.